Even if you succeed to stop a single messenger, you will not stop the message. That is the pledge from Forbidden Stories, an organisation, a platform set up to ensure that investigations on corruption, health, the environment, whatever, do get published and are heard, even if the journalist behind the story is prevented from delivering the final results, either killed, imprisoned or censored in any other way. Well, joining us in studio is the founder of Forbidden Stories, Mr. Laurent Richard. Mr. Richard, thanks for your time. Firstly, give us an idea why you set up this platform and what exactly you hope it can do.
Well, the goal of Forbidden Stories is to complete the stories of jail or killed journalists. The main idea of that platform is to make sure people get access to independent information. Usually when journalists get killed, they get killed because they are working on very important topics such as environment, corruption, human rights violation. And so we are not here to make a kind of tribute to the journalists, but to make sure that we will make sure the people get access to that kind of information, very important for the public interest. And that wasn't coming from the journalist's own media organisation? I mean, does it only concern independent journalists, or? Yeah, it concerns every journalist who is facing some very important threats, whether they are working for a news organisation or whether they are freelancing. Most of the time, journalists who are very at risk are freelancers, and they don't have this kind of newsroom with them to back them. And so we want to organize that kind of network and to send, as you say, this powerful signal to enemies of the press that if you want to kill the messenger, you will never kill the message. Now, of course, you had the idea in your mind to set up a platform like this after the Charlie Hebdo attacks in Paris, which targeted that satirical magazine. But it came to international light, if I may, when you had that first cross-border work on the murder of the Maltese journalist, Daphne Caruana Galizia. 45 journalists worked on it, 15 different countries or more. But how did that work? I mean, you know, she hadn't posted to your website before she was killed. How exactly does it work? Well, basically, right after the killing of Daphne, we were in touch with the son of Daphne, Matthew, and with all the family. And we decided to, because Daphne was working on very important topics, such as corruption, organized crime in the middle of Europe, that it was very important to continue her work. And she was facing 46 libel cases, you know. So she was really harassed, and it was important for us to create a kind of a network of 45 journalists coming from 18 news organizations, including The Guardian, The New York Times, Reuters, Le Monde, French Public Television. And so basically, for the first step of that investigation, we wanted to get all the data that Daphne was working on, the last sources she was talking with, and get all that information on the table. And once we did that, the first goal was trying to identify who might be behind the killing of Daphne, and then to complete the stories of Daphne. And so we work in a very secret operation for 6 months for that, and we published that first project 2 months ago. Indeed, and managed to bring some of her stories to a light. Yes, and one of the very important stories was about what we call the cash for passports. You know, Malta. Golden visas. Yeah, golden visas. The Maltese authorities are selling some Maltese passport, that means European passports, to people coming from all over the world who wants to buy one passport for 1 million euros, like that, on the table. And so with that passport, then they can invest, they can buy some properties in Europe, or they can launder the money or so. So that's a very important topics, and we work on that, and we publish and we break many stories with that investigation. Indeed, and on that particular one, lots of backhanding apparently to the authorities there in Malta. But of course, that story is here in the EU. But on your website, Forbidden Stories, lots of stories from journalists in Mexico in particular. Just to give people an idea of the kind of work being done, let's take a look at a quick clip which we have edited from your website, Forbidden Stories.
Que hay compromisos muy fuertes entre el gobierno y este líder criminal, y va a seguir habiendo muertes, puesto que no quieren actuar como debe de ser.
Tengo perfectamente la radiografía. Y ya les dije, el tequilero número 1 Se llama Saúl Beltrán Orozco.
Really, so a hard-hitting story there, accusing a deputy in Mexico of actually being a cartel, a drug leader. Has Forbidden Stories come under pressure?
Not yet, but I do think that collaboration is really the best protection. It makes no sense for enemies of the press to try anything against us, because we are not one. We are at least 45 and maybe more, actually. So that's why I do think that collaboration is a very good protection. What is very important with these Mexican journalists and the Mexican stories they were covering, it's not only a Mexican story, actually. It's a global story. These journalists who have been killed, like Cecilio Pineda or Javier Valdez, have been killed because they were working on some drug cartel. But those very same drug cartel are selling drugs all over the world. The Sinaloa cartel is selling drugs in 56 countries in the world, including France, UK, in the US. So that's why it's important to have that kind of global answer to this kind of global story and global threat against those journalists.
Indeed, it justifies that global work on investigating those stories. We're going to have to leave it there, but Mr. Laurent Richard, thanks so much for coming in and telling us more about Forbidden Stories, which the message is clearly the bigger the better when it comes to journalistic investigation.